Okay, so in this video, we're going to take a look at the art of Iron Man 3. So in this book, we have all the concept art from Iron Man 3, from the movie. And this is basically a combination of all the work that the concept artists did on the film before, in the pre-production stage, before production actually began. So we're going to go over this book today. So if you'd like to get a copy of the art of Iron Man 3, I'll leave an affiliate link in the description below of where you can purchase this book. Here's the cover of the book. As you can see, we have the movie poster with Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. And at the back, we can see some of the Iron Legion, some of the different Iron Man armors that he has in the film. Okay, so let's just take that out. Okay, so the body of the book, as you can see here, has this beautiful artwork, concept art of the Mark 42. This is the main armor that he uses in the film. I believe it's the Mark 42 anyway. I need to double check that. And you've got the Iron Legion in the background fighting the Extremis soldiers here. And so this is some really beautiful cover. Okay, so let's take a look inside. Beautiful design. So this is a nice little design here, which is kind of resembling the arc reactor or the RT. And it's the art of Iron Man 3. Okay, I really liked this. This was like the main poster that I remember seeing from Iron Man 3. Just basically Tony Stark in his laboratory, in his workshop, with the different Iron Man armors. I think that's Mark 1 to Mark 7. Some nice beautiful artwork here again. I believe of the Mark 42. We've got the different chapters here. Introduction, chapter 1, all the way till chapter 7. There's a foreword by Ryan Meriden. I've read this entire book in its whole entirety, but we'll just obviously just go over the artwork and I'll commentate on the different aspects of the film as they were making it and some of the things I remember them talking about. So we got this little foreword by Ryan Meriden. Now he's the VP, the head of the vice president of the visual department, Marvel, and he's been on the film since Iron Man 1. And in here, this part just basically talks about bringing the movie back to the cave, just going back from Avengers, going into Iron Man 3, how they wanted to actually go back to Iron Man 1 and bring him back to the cave and to focus on this Iron Man Extremis story arc. And that's where they got a lot of the inspiration from the film, was from this story arc. And obviously the premise of bringing Tony Stark back, you know, stripping him of his suits and, you know, bringing him back to that situation where his back's against the wall. Okay. And you got this Iron Patriot from the variant cover of the Dark Avengers 2009 by Marco Duvalic. I'm pronouncing that wrong. I apologize. And this beautiful artwork of Iron Man in his workshop with the Iron Legion. And that's the cover of Iron Man 1998 by Paulo Rivera. And you see some of the comic book art from the cover from Avengers. And this was the Extremis, basically when he's calling the suit to him. So this was some of the stuff that we got from the Mark 42 in this film. And the Mandarin here as well, the Iron Man. Chapter 1, the hero inside and out. Okay. So this book really just goes over some of the beautiful artwork and concept art and just the designs of the suits. There's so many different suits in this movie. So this book really goes into detail. So here we start with the Mark 1 to 7. Obviously the Mark 1 from Iron Man 1 when he escaped the cage. The Mark 2, which was used by Rhodey to create the War Machine armor in Iron Man 2. And that was the first Mark where he tried to go up in the air and he had the ice problem. The Mark 3, which is the main Iron Man armor from Iron Man 1. The Mark 4 and the Mark 5. This was the suitcase armor. Mark 6, when he created the different element for his arc reactor in that triangle shape for the end of Iron Man 2, and the Mark 7, which was his armor in the first Avengers movie. Mark 7. So this is basically going over some of the concept art of his repulsor, his hand repulsor. Beautiful concept art by Phil Saunders. So it's basically explaining about how they wanted the blast to happen as he opened his hand. They're going over just the different concept art of how the repulsor would actually like come out of his hand and how the explosion would work. And you can see it here, some of the concepts behind that. So here's the Mark 42, which is the main armor that we see Iron Man experimenting with and creating in Iron Man 3. And this is the armor that is cool to him. Like, it's got the different pieces that come to him. So Ryan Meriden was the supervisor behind this, and Phil Saunders did the concept art here, and Andy Park did the concept art here. So these are all different members of the team, and these are all the different versions of the Mark 42 that the team came up with. And then they looked at the different designs and the color. They basically said in the book that they wanted to go with more of the gold, red and gold design, and have a little bits of the silver popping up on the suit, but more having it these areas to be more gold. Because the first Iron Man armor, one of the first Iron Man armors in the comics, I believe, was actually a gold Iron Man suit, as well as some of the different colors we see. And these are some of the helmet designs by Ryan Meriden. And this is very close to the one in the movie, as you can see here. That's Ryan Meriden's concept art there. And we've got different iterations of the Mark 42 with different color schemes. Beautiful. Again, these two, you can definitely see it from the film that this was kind of close to the final concept that they had for the film. That's Phil Saunders' concept art design for the Mark 42. And here's some more of the design. You see the front, back, and side. That's a Ryan Meriden paint over. And here's some of the arc reactor designs. So this was updated, and they wanted to have more triangles in the arc reactor. Here it says the world calls it the arc reactor. We call it the RT, which is repulsor technology. That's basically the battery-powered device that he uses to power up the Iron Man machine, or the Iron Man armor, should I say. And it also helps keep the shrapnel away from Tony's heart, which at the end of this film, obviously we see that he's able to find a solution to that shrapnel. And then it was really interesting that they talked about the augmented cognition headset. So this allowed Tony to be able to summon the parts of the Mark 42 to him. And he used this augmented headset to be able to also summon the Iron Legion, which we see towards the end of the film. So that's what they wanted the headset design, this augmented headset to actually do. And I think this is kind of like the future of where technology is even going, like using augmented reality and augmented wearable technology to kind of, go along, and do the things we do with our phones and computers and things like that. That's just my opinion anyway. In chapter 2, Suit Envy. So this is all about Lieutenant James Rhodes, Rhodey, Iron Man's best mate and the Colonel. And obviously in Iron Man 2, he became the War Machine. But here in Iron Man 3 is more Iron Patriot, which was a more patriotic looking suit, especially as he's now basically he was defending the president of the United States in this, or he was assigned to be he was almost like Secretary of Defense in a way, but he was, the main protector for the US Army with the War Machine and Iron Patriot suit. So here they had concept art for War Machine, and they talked about the difference between Tony's armor and Rhodey's armor. Rhodey, they described the Iron Man armor that Tony wears to be more like a Ferrari, whereas with War Machine and with Rhodes being a military man, it's more like a tank. So it's a lot more bulky. Obviously it has the minigun. different color. There's a lot more to it, you know, especially from the first film. There was less, or should I say from Iron Man 2, it was slightly less in this, with the Iron Patriot. But here you can see some of the earlier designs, you know. This design is more like the War Machine that we saw in Iron Man 2. A bit more bulky, a lot more going on here. But you see the minigun's a lot larger than it is here. And there's some different designs of the War Machine armor. Study of the shoulder mount here. And this was a nice visualization of that cannon that he has on his shoulder. So here it says, Phil and I worked on the War Machine suit together. Visual Department's supervisor Ryan Merriding says, I did most of the body design and Phil designed the head. This suit is one of my favorite suits I've worked on for the Iron Man movies. It's very nice. And this is Ryan Merriding's concept art War Machine. And that is actually a gun pre-mold still, courteous of Legacy Effects. And I like this. They showed this in the film as well. War Machine wasn't there, but they did show when Iron Man had his armor. The Mark 42 was parked outside the restaurant where him and Rhodey were having like lunch and having a conversation. And then when he has the panic attack, he comes out to his Iron Man armor. So you kind of have it parked like by these bikes. So it's almost like it's like their vehicles. These guys have their, this is their transportation. This is their identity. This is, and even here showing this kind of augmented heads up display kind of thing, like here to show this is active. It's like knowing that it's ready for Tony to pilot. No one else could literally just come and hijack that because it's programmed only for use for Tony. The same with the War Machine armor is only programmed for War Machine. And then we have the Iron Patriot. Some of the Iron Patriot designs. So they were saying in the comics that the Iron Patriot was more like a mix between Iron Man and Captain America to get that patriotism mixed with the Iron Man technology. But here, obviously, Rhodey's taking on the Iron Patriot, being more integrated in the US government and the US Army with the Iron Man armor. Or the War Machine armor, should I say. Some more of the designs. And there's from the film. Okay, chapter 2, the Iron Mansion. So this chapter just goes over the mansion, his work, Tony Stark's workshop. And it talks about how, he's creating all these different armors, that he had like a wine cellar basically below the workshop to store all these armors that he's been working on all this time since Avengers. And then it talks about like the destruction of the mansion and how obviously all those Iron Man armors were buried deep within his workshop, Nice image of Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark from the movie. And here we have the alternate suits, okay? So it shows the different suits, and then it goes into the designs of the different suits. So this is the Mark 17. It's called the Heartbreaker, or the Heartbreaker, should I say. It's an artillery level RT suit. Okay, and then here we have the Mark 25 Thunder. It's a heavy construction suit. Then we have the Mark 15 Sneaky. So that's a stealth suit. And that's a Phil Saunders concept design. Just Nizzy concept design of the Mark 39. This is a Gemini suit. So this is a suborbital suit that is designed to go into outer space. We have the Mark 33, which is a Silver Centurion enhanced energy suit. We have the Mark 35, which is the Red Snapper. This is the disaster rescue suit, and you can see it's got these big kind of claw arms. It's a lot more bulky version of the Iron Man armor. we have here the Mark 37, which is the hammerhead, and then this is a deep sea suit, so that would allow Tony to go deep into the ocean. You can see some concept art of him deep under the ocean with this Iron Man armor, or obviously it could be remotely accessed as well, or remotely piloted, as we see in the movie, shall I say. And here we have Ryan Mirading's design of the Mark 41, the Bones skeletal suit. And here we have the Mark 38 Igor, the heavy lifting suit. Now, when I first saw this, and when most people saw this in the trailers, as one of the trailers, we assumed it was the Hulkbuster. But this is like the early concepts of the Hulkbuster, of creating a bigger, bulkier Iron Man armor to deal with heavy duty warfare or heavy duty lifting or combat. So it's like kind of like almost the first concept for the Hulkbuster. They were saying with the inspiration with this. Here we have the Mark 16, and this is the nightclub black stealth suit. This is Andy Park's concept art. And here we have the assault on Tony's mansion, the storyboards. So if you watch these storyboards, they very closely resemble the actual scenes in the film. So it shows you like the process of pre-production and all the planning and previs and the things that they do before the film's actually made. So if you look at these storyboards, you can see like the sequence, if you remember in the film, like how close it resembles the scene in the film when Tony's home is attacked by the Mandarin or his gang or his crew. Okay, and that's some stills from the film of that mansion attack. That was really epic in the film. I did really enjoy that scene. That was really good. Remember seeing the trailer and thinking, wow. So here we see this brilliant sequence here where the Mandarin's gang or army is attacking the Malibu mansion, and you see the mansion collapsing. Tony is basically trying to summon the Mark 42 to Pepper to protect her, and when she manages to escape with Tony's ex, then he basically calls the Mark 42 to come and protect him, and so he could wear it and cope with the onslaught from the Mandarin's attack here. So some beautiful storyboards here. Here's some more of the artwork. You see Tony falling as the mansion falls. Here's some more of that sequence as Tony begins to, as you can see, he's getting shot at, and as he's going under, he's calling the Mark 42. You see the helmet coming on here. The amount of detail that's in these sequences, you have to know that before these films are made in the post-production stage, there's all these people, those people that you see in the end credits, they're doing all this work basically to make sure that the film is ready, and that the camera ops, the directors, everybody has the shots they need. They know what they need. They visually can see the concept, from concept to paper, what it's going to look like on film. Very nice concept art here of Iron Man and the helicopter attack. Some more of the concept art. Love this one with the heads up display. You can see Tony Stark. And here they said that with this sequence, again, most of it was actually CGI, computer generated. They wanted to look at practical ways in which they could do this, but it wasn't possible. They couldn't get some of the flight agreements, and it was just not practical to have helicopters and a mansion like that. The location wasn't real, so they couldn't do it the way that they wanted to photograph it. So they had to use CG, and it was a very well done sequence. Very epic sequence. I remember it in the trailer. It was just so epic. Looking at this, and this brilliant kind of capture from the film. Was that concept art? That is concept art. That's right. Rob McKinnon concept art. See, I couldn't even tell. Brilliant. Some more of the storyboards from that sequence with the the helicopter attack, you can see. And Tony, Iron Man underneath the ocean. Here's some of the storyboard behind underneath the ocean. And they said that they used, basically they said that the only reference they had that was real was like, I think Robert Downey Jr.'s hand, and I believe obviously his face, but like most of the other references in the scene are CG, you know, because they said obviously it's kind of hard to film human hair and movement underneath the water, so they had to do, you know, there was a lot of work that was done CGI in this scene, you know. But as you can see, the shots are very meticulously planned, and you can see this sequence, you know, the sequence where he comes out of the ocean at the end and escapes the helicopter attack. You know, it's very well planned. You know, it's very detailed. And here you see the aftermath. There's Pepper Potts at the mansion with all the rummage. Some scenes from the film with Gwyneth Paltrow and the Iron Man helmet. Nice scene of the aftermath. Chapter 4, No Such Thing as Heroes. So in this chapter, we're really looking at the Mandarin and the Extremis army and some of the designs behind them and the concepts behind the Mandarin. So here's some of the concept designs that they had for the Mandarin. Now, this was played by Sir Ben Kingsley. And what they said was they wanted it to have his aesthetics to be kind of a mix between the Genghis Khan and pop culture, so maybe a bit of Mongolian influence mixed with different pop cultural things. And with some of the designs, they do even add elements of American culture, because they wanted the Mandarin to be someone who knows the psychological warfare that would take place terrorizing the American nation. And here you see some of the designs that more resemble, should I say, the design that you see Sir Ben Kingsley's Mandarin in the film. You know, the tattoos, you know, headband. He's got the more, they get this kind of Mongolian soldier image in the background, so representing that kind of Genghis Khan image they talk about. The dragon background, really beautiful designs, actually. Very very cool. Some Terragotan warriors from China, maybe that he acquired. And then even with this kind of cloak design, they said that they had elements of American culture in this one. If you see on the next page with a more colored version, even in the design, with the typography here, it's similar to the American dollar, where it says "In God We Trust," and here it says "Only in death will we yield, in chaos we trust." So it's kind of like a spin on, you know, the American dollar and the value system of what the Mandarin stood for. So that's what some of the more subtle designs in his outfit. There's little attention to details you don't necessarily notice in the film, but it's all there. These little details just help tell the story of the character, you know. And there's Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin, or the Mandarin. And some of the nice designs of the rings for the Mandarin here. Now, this is Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce, the real villain of the film. And this is some transformation shots of him in the Extremis transformation, burning up. Some of his tattoo designs. And here's some of the Extremis soldiers. Really nice design. The lighting, they said that they really looked at different lighting elements. They looked at molding elements and reptiles, you know, how limbs would grow back and things of that nature. And they studied how to kind of bring that together in a sort of realistic way, because Iron Man is kind of in a realistic, they didn't want it to be too extravagant, even though it is obviously an extravagant concept of the Extremis, but they wanted to look at some of these real world examples of how certain things in our world work, in terms of lighting, in terms of like reptiles and lost limbs, how they could grow back on a human being if this kind of technology existed. So here's some of the concepts of arms growing back here. Really great designs here. Chapter 5, Extreme Measures. So this basically goes over Iron Man when he lands in Tennessee and he's stripped away of everything. And here is the Burn Tech conference that you see at the beginning of the film. Now this is actually where he meets the guy who would help him build the Iron Man armor in the cave in Iron Man 1. You see a brief moment where they meet. And he does say in Iron Man 1, we met once at a party. You don't remember me. You were really drunk and whatever. You weren't really fussed about me. But it's ironic that you see him at the beginning of the film in that scene. And here we have Stark Industries. So they talk about the design of Stark Industries in the offices and how it would be, you know, a lot more, because Pepper Potts is now the CEO and should be more concerned about environmental elements of Stark Industries and using Stark technology for renewable energy, things of that nature. So they designed the offices to look more like that, less hard and less more weapons based like it was in the first movie. And then you have Rose Hill, Tennessee. So this is where Iron Man lands, where Jarvis takes the Iron Man armor and Tony Stark to escape from that attack. Here we see the Mark 42 on the ground, and they said that basically they wanted Tony to be like dragging the Mark 42 like almost like a burden, like he's carrying a burden. It's a man who's kind of been defeated, and now he's been stripped of, you know, his home, he's been stripped of his tools, and now we're going to see that Tony Stark that we saw in the first Iron Man and what he does with minimalist kind of resources, and he's able to still, you know, create and overcome his problems. I remember seeing that scene in the film as well, where that was quite symbolic when he was in the phone booth and the Mark 42 is lying on the ground almost like it's knackered. It's a really good symbolism right there. Some more concept art from Rob McCain on the Tennessee area. And they said they wanted this to be like they wanted a town that was almost stuck in time. So there wasn't no technology and all that kind of stuff. And it was just kind of a bare bones town. That's where he would be, kind of reminiscent of back in the cave, like the whole theme of this film. And then we have the workshop with the little boy, Harley, the young little mechanic, and his little workshop, his dad's workshop. Obviously the dad left and all died, and the mother wasn't around. Here is this boy, and he's like got, you know, he's an engineer, he's, you know, wanting to, you know, build stuff, and Tony's here and he's using these more modern, everyday tools that, you know, people be more related. They wanted the tools in this in the garage to be more relatable to like an American home, where, you know, the dad would have tools in the backyard, and those would be the tools that Tony would use to, you know, help him in the situation he was in, you know, as opposed to the technology and the extravagance of his workshop that he would be used to in his $1 billion Malibu mansion. And some of the home weapons that were designed, you know, you got the super PVC launcher, sprinkler, a timer, fertilizer bomb, slime PVC gun, all the different weapons that were created from Tony Stark using the tools that he had available in that garage with Harley. And this weapon as well. Remember, he handed that to Harley in the film, I remember. That's what he used to escape from Aldrich Killian. And the beauty pageant. Mandarin's Miami mansion. Okay. So this part of the film a lot of people didn't like. I didn't like it either, where you find out that the Mandarin's just like he's not real. Like he's just an actor. This film has grown on me the more and more I watch it, but you know, I didn't like that part. I'm not sure if I like that part, but the film's grown on me a little bit more, I have to say. I mean, I get what they were trying to say. And this was basically like the they were describing the area in which Rhodey and gets captured, and also where Tony gets captured as well, and basically the design of that area where they're trying to get the Iron Patriot armor off Rhodey when he refuses to come out, and then Ulrich Killian starts to burn him alive with it to try and get him out. And then that's that sequence where Tony has only the gauntlet, and he has one part of the gauntlet, one part of the rocket propel boots, and he's having to deal with, you know, the soldiers just with those two elements of his Iron Man armor, and, you know, with the weapons that he created, like the PVC gun and those things that he created in the workshop. So they wanted him to be moving around very awkwardly, you know, and this was one of the first concept arts that they released to promote the film, actually. Ryan Meriden talked about that when they released this. They wanted it to like show Tony in a vulnerable situation, but he's also, you know, you see parts of the Iron Man suit on him, and he's having to use this minimalist setup to deal with his enemies here, which is a really nice concept art. And then you got Air Force One with the Iron Patriot, when one of the extremist soldiers actually infiltrates the Iron Patriot armor, and they think it's Rhodes, but the president's unaware of that. And you see some stills from the film. This sequence was pretty good. So when the Iron Patriot is taken over by this guy, and they throw the people out of Air Force One, and Iron Man has to rescue all these people, but he can't handle all the different people. So it goes over the sequence and how they had to film that, and how they did some parachute jumping to kind of get the sequence, and how they had to film the landing separately, and to get everybody's, like, even the women, they were wearing skirts and things like that, so they had to make sure the wind was blowing in a certain direction, or they didn't, even they were wearing heels, they had to throw away the heels. Some people had to have goggles on as they were coming towards the ocean, and all these kind of safety things that you don't think about when they're filming such an extravagant scene like this. But it's so well planned out, and you can see even in these storyboards, like the planning, you see the heads-up display. He's analyzing the situation, the different people, how they they describe it as catching the monkeys, the catching monkeys, as they call it, or I forget what they're called, but it's a game where these monkeys basically have to link arms. And it was kind of like playing that game, but in terms of like catching people as they fall out of a plane. And then I love the end part here where he finally drops them all off in the water, and he's like looking back to check they're all safe, and, you know, saluting them, and he's not watching where he's going, and then he smashes into the van. That's a very, like, they had that comedy is very much embedded in Iron Man, which I like. It's that kind of thing of failure. Like, he's always, you know, he's always experimenting and messing up and making mistakes and things like that. That's how he became Iron Man, by experimenting and making mistakes like that, like not being completely cool, like not looking where he's going, and he smashes the armor, you know. And then this goes over the seaport location for where they were going to do the final battle with the Iron Legion, and just talking about some of the things that went into that. And here we have chapter 6, the Iron Legion. So these are all the 40, well, up to Mark 42, the different armors. And this beautiful kind of double page spread here that just goes over. If I zoom out a little bit, so you can see the full Iron Man, the Iron Legion. So you have your Mark 1 from Iron Man 1, all the way to your Mark 7 from Avengers, the first Avengers movie. You have your Mark 8, your Mark 9, your Mark 10, Mark 11, 12, and it goes over all the basically all the Iron Legion here. Okay? So we've gone over some of them already. You got the Mark 15, the sneaky suit. We have the Mark 16, which is the nightclub suit. Mark 17, the Heartbreaker, the artillery level RT suit. The Mark 18, the Casanova stealth artillery level RT suit. Mark 19, the Tiger high velocity prototype suit. The Mark 20, which is the Python, the long distance suit. The Mark 21, which is the Midas high altitude suit. The Mark 22, which is the Hot Rod War Machine 2.0 prototype. And here we have the Mark 23, which is the Shades extreme heat suit. Mark 24, the tank, the heavy combat suit. Mark 25, the Thunder, the heavy construction suit. The Mark 26, which is the Gamma, the heavy construction suit upgrade. Got the Mark 27, this is the Disco, it's the chameleon suit. The Mark 28, which is Jack, that is the radiation zone suit. Here we have the Mark 29, Fiddler, which is the nimble construction suit. So here we have the Mark 30. This is the Blue Steel Silver Centurion suit upgrade. Mark 31, the Piston, the high velocity Centurion suit. The Mark 32, this is Romeo, the enhanced RT suit. The Mark 33, and this is the Silver Centurion enhanced energy suit. We have the Mark 34, the Southpaw. This is the disaster rescue suit prototype. The Mark 35, the Red Snapper, which is the disaster rescue suit. Then we have the Mark 36, and this is the Peacemaker, the riot control suit. Mark 37, the Hammerhead deep sea suit. The Mark 38, this is Igor, the heavy lifting suit. Prototypes of the Hulkbuster. The Mark 39, the Gemini suborbit suit. So this is the one that goes into space. The Mark 40, the shotgun, the high velocity suit. Mark 41, Bones, and that is the skeleton suit. And the Mark 42, the prehensive suit. So that's the one that Iron Man wears in the film. So this the entire Iron Legion from Iron Man 1 all the way to Iron Man 3. Obviously, it goes all the way up to the Mark 50 and the Mark, I forgot the one in Iron Man, sorry, in Avengers Endgame is. Mark 50's in Avengers Infinity War, and the Mark 43 must have been in Civil War. No, not in Civil War. In Avengers Age of Ultron, but then he had the Ultron bots as well. But that's beyond this book. So let's focus on this book. Here you see this beautiful montage of some of the Iron Man suits. You got the Iron Patriot, you got the stealth suit, you got the Mark 42, and you got some of the other designs as well. Beautiful. That's one thing I really loved about this film, was just seeing Tony's different suits, you know, and all the suits he had designed. And then it goes into the battle, the final battle, and how they wanted to do it. And there was some fantastic sequences here, which I really wish I'd seen more of in the film. Even though they were in the film, I didn't really notice them. They weren't emphasized enough for me. It was some fantastic concept here. And it's just so great to see in this book, the Iron Legion and all the different things that they could do. You know, all the different ideas that Tony had when creating all those different suits, you know. And then you're seeing him in battle with the Extremis army, and just basically all these Iron Legions coming together as he summons them through his augmented glasses heads-up display. He's able to just summon all these suits, and it's just so good to see, man. It was really epic. That is one thing I did like about the film, was watching that. And a lot of them were getting destroyed. Did see a lot of them get destroyed. Getting taken on by the Extremis army. Look at this sequence. Beautiful. Just, I didn't see a scene like this. I would have liked to have seen a scene like this where it's almost like the scene from Iron Man 2 where Rhodey and Tony are back to back. You got War Machine and Iron Man back to back against the droids, the hammer drones. And I would have liked to have seen a bit more of that kind of scene like this, where you see them all fighting like this, like a huge wide shot of all this action happening at once. We didn't really get that in this sequence. Just to show how epic it is, all these different Iron Man suits were, you know. In my opinion, I didn't think that they showed it enough. It felt like just a bunch of suits rather than the differences in which you could see some of the differences, like the one that come apart. It comes apart and it comes back together. You know, Igor, obviously the heavy lifting Hulkbuster kind of suit, but you didn't really see the personality of all the different suits. I didn't feel, because when you hear about what they can do, it just looks amazing. In some of the sequences I'll show you in a moment, in the storyboards, were absolutely brilliant. Here's Pepper when she's infected by the extremists. And then you have some of these sequences here basically showing the different things that the different suits were doing. Like here they had a bunch of the extremist soldiers in this cargo, and then the suit that goes into space takes them up into space, things like that, and then he burns them coming out, going back into the Earth's orbit. They get burnt coming on the way because they're holding on to him, things like that. You got this one, which is the RT suit, the heartburn suit, and it had different gags, and basically they wanted to create different gags for each of the suits, and apparently a lot of them were in the film, but I didn't remember seeing most of these. I saw some of them, but it was very brief, so it wasn't as memorable as you can see here. I do remember this, when the suit goes apart, and then although they had some funny things here where like he was punching himself in the face, the suit comes onto him, the suit comes onto his face, the helmet comes onto one of the extremist soldiers' face, the legs come on and start kicking him, kicking the enemies, that kicking each other. That was so cool. Like these little moments here, it does a kick and he's wondering what happened, and then he gets blasted in the face. It sends him into orbit, like all this funny stuff. He's shooting at it from behind, but then he punches the cargo and crushes him. There were so many different like gags like this, which, you know, if they were in the film, which they did say, the concept artist said that there was a lot of these gags in the film, but they weren't as memorable as it would have been as I'm seeing here, you know, because you didn't focus on them individually enough. I didn't feel that they did anyway. But these are some great gags here. This is the stealth suit doing some acrobatic moves and doing a dragon punch that they even describe as a dragon punch, followed by a boosted assist dragon punch. So the black stealth suit uses RT boost assist parkour style wall running and flip to get behind the enemy, and does a dragon punch like Street Fighter. So good. And then using the blades to cut them in half. So many different gags here. It's just brilliant. See, the concept art in these books are so fantastic because they show you all the ideas. A lot of them that don't make it to film, some of them that do, but you get to see, oh, that's where they got the idea to do that. That's how they prepared to do that. And it's just seeing the creative process of how these films get made and these artists putting together these frames, because essentially a film is motion picture. You know, it's, you know, you're shooting 24 frames per second in, you know, Hollywood. So that's 24 pictures to make a frame in a film, a motion picture. So that's where it starts, is in this concept art that you're seeing in this book. You know, it's just fantastic. Okay, so this is chapter 7, marketing Iron Man 3. Probably the most important part of a movie is the marketing. I think the most important part of any form of art is the marketing. And it goes over some of the poster designs that they had, and they talk about Iron Man 1's art marketing and what made it successful. And they show this concept art because I remember seeing it on some of the television shows, and people were talking about the concept art. And even now, you know, in the Black Widow film hasn't come out yet as of recording this film, but I remember seeing the concept art of her versus Black Widow versus a Taskmaster on the bridge. That's one of the concept art that they're using to promote the film. And this is the concept art that they used to promote Iron Man 3. I do remember this. May 2013. In San Diego Comic-Con 2012, they did show this frame. And Ryan Merriding, who designed the concept art here, he said, I did this teaser poster for San Diego Comic-Con to show the idea of Tony being on the run and in danger. Visual development supervisor Ryan Merriding says, his suit is mostly malfunctioning and he only has part of it, plus he's surrounded. So that gives you something to kind of question as you're seeing it. So it's a great marketing piece to show some of the beautiful concept art. Here are some of the beautiful concept arts from the posters. I remember this kind of pose. Some nice poses of the Iron Man armor coming on. Kind of more of a distressed look here. So some great pieces here. Him holding the helmet. See all these different concept arts for the poster, for the promotion. It's really important, you know, because this film did like over $1 billion at the box office. So a lot of it has to do with the marketing as well as obviously the branding of Marvel and of Iron Man at this point. You know, there'd already been 2 successful films before, but this was the most successful one, not surprisingly. This is the poster I do remember the most. This one where it just says 3 and it has him in Tony Stark in his workshop with the different Iron Man armors, you know, from Mark 1 to 7. Underneath, you've got all the different art marks all the way down to Mark 42. Well, Mark 42 is what he's working on, but up to Mark 41 is beneath him, which is really good. So it's kind of concealed away. So it's almost like he's got these ones on display, or as the Iron Man's armors that you known from before, from previous films. He's working on the Mark 42 now, but the other marks are all below, hidden away. So there's this like it's almost like a secret weapon. So I mean, you take those little things from the posters. That's obviously from telling the story of, you know, his escape from the mansion with the Mark 42 being the burden. And I do remember these posters, you know, the Gwyneth Paltrow one, the Don Cheadle, Guy Pearce and Ben Kingsley posters. Those character posters that they like to do for Marvel, which is really nice. And I do also remember this one where he's falling out of the sky. So that was the second Theoretic trailer teaser poster with the concept. So that was really nice. And there's this one with Pepper and Tony and the Iron Legion in the background. This nice one here, which was the cover of this book. And we have this one with the whole cast, basically. All the main cast members. I do remember seeing that one a lot. Bill Britsky just talking about, you know, how he designed a lot of this beautiful concepts to be destroyed, like, and he's like the guy you go to kind of create destruction, like he did with in this film with the mansion scene, etc. So he's just talking a bit about that. And then they just talk about some of the people who were involved in the making of the film, from the director Shane Black, Kevin Feige, of course, Louis D'Esposito, the executive producer and Marvel co-president is Kevin Feige, and different people just talking about the creative process of Iron Man 3. Acknowledgements and the art grad to the end. The Art of Avengers Infinity War. Now, this book is worth reading just to see all the different concept art designs that they had for Thanos alone. It's absolutely fantastic. So click right here to see my video where I go over all the concept art in this book, and make sure you subscribe to the channel